Welcome back to From the Bench, everybody. As always, it's Eric, and today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the 2024-25 Series 1 Young Guns checklist. That's right, we know who all 49 of the Young Guns are going to be when this product releases next Wednesday, October 16th. So it's time for us to kind of look into them a little bit further. Everyone knows when you turn around the card, you can see on the Young Gun their age, their height, their weight. Great. But how we actually look into who these players are, where they played before, how they produced in those other places, so you guys have a little bit more of a background for when you pull these Young Guns, you know exactly who they are, and maybe you can prospect, maybe you can kind of stash away these guys if you are high on them and everything else. Lots of options here. Maybe you want to grade certain guys because you think they might have a better second half of the year once the season really gets started. Lots of opportunities for this kind of video. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Like I said, it's always a video I enjoy making. I've made them for, I think, the last couple sets overall. And like I said, something I really enjoy doing on the channel. So first thing, when we look at the 49 players in this Young Guns checklist, let's figure out who they are. So first off, how is it constructed? We have 33 forwards. So out of the 49 Young Guns, we have 33 forwards. That's pretty good. You're getting, that 2/3 of the way there. Defensemen, we got 13 of them, and goalies, we have 3. So that's a pretty good breakdown. And you have more forwards by quite a bit. That's always what you want to see, right? We essentially have twice as many forwards as we do defensemen and goalies. That's a good thing. Other things I kind of look at. Undrafted guys, we kind of see it sometimes in, extended, especially in some of the earlier years of extended. It was a bunch of random guys that never, played one game, 2 games there. This Young Guns class here is going to be 6 undrafted guys. So we have 6 undrafted out of the 49. So 43 of these players were all drafted. Once again, pretty good numbers. 6 isn't that bad. Another thing I look at, and a watcher of the channel actually coined this for me one time, and I've used it ever since, and I will continue using it. But the term, instead of Young Guns, we have Old Guns. So essentially players that are a little bit older. I went 25 years and up, which 25 is kind of that threshold for me. Obviously, you got guys like Kaprizov and stuff that came in around that age. But 25 years and older, we have 9 of them. So once again, we have 6 undrafted guys, and then a lot of those guys are also over 25 in this set. But we have, essentially 20% of this were guys that are over 25 years of age or older. So it's not even that bad. Like I said, it could be better, sure, whatever. But a lot of these sets, especially Series 1, it's players that have come in at the end of last year. So essentially the last, some of these players only have one game because they played like the last game of the year because their college season finished up or whatever it is. Maybe they played a little bit in the playoffs. But that's one of those things to think about when you're looking at all this is who these players are. Like I said, how much of a shakeup did they get? So they might not be, real names that people know everywheres because they only played that one game, but they played a lot in the AHL the year before, or they played in juniors or college or wherever it is. Going back to pedigree, if you guys listen to this, watch this podcast a lot, when I talk about people that I like to pick up, a lot of the players I'm looking for have that high draft pedigree. So high draft pedigree, i.e. first round draft picks. So in total, out of the 49 players on this checklist, 13 of them are first round draft picks. That's not bad. That's, pretty good for a Series 1. And then 15 of them are actually in second round draft picks. So once again, first and second round draft picks makes up 28 of your 49. That's a pretty good range there for the players. Nothing against the 5th round or 6th round or 7th round draft picks, but they don't always get the most opportunities. The leash isn't always the longest for them, and sometimes they don't have the most collectability compared to some players that were drafted in the first or second round. Right? These organizations are really going to push those first and second round picks, so they're going to give them more time in the power play. They're going to give them more chances in a lot of other stuff. So once again, that's just something to think about when you look in this. You guys might have different opinions on that, and that's fine. But anyways, we'll get into it. We're going to turn this around, and here we are. Zachary Bolduc, the first one. This is number 201 on your checklist. Zachary Bolduc for the St. Louis Blues. I am recording this after the Thursday night games. So couple stats here. one of the big chases, had himself a night. But essentially, Zachary Bolduc, 21 years old, 6 feet, 187 pounds. Again, you guys can get all that on the back of a trading card. But first round draft pick for the St. Louis Blues in 2021. Spoiler, a lot of 2021 draft picks in this. Played in the queue for Mooski and then Quebec. Won a championship with Quebec. Had, a decent run there. 99 points, 110 points, 55 goals, 50 goals. Last year for Springfield, played in 50 games for them. Had 25 points so half a point per game. Got to the NHL, didn't quite have that same production, but a lot of times he's scoring at a pretty good pace for most of his career. First season with Rimouski, and really the second season was the only one that he really kind of struggled there. Maybe he was injured. He only played in 27 games. So, so still put up 5 goals last year, 8 goals, 17 assists in the AHL. So, good potential, big guy. St. Louis just had the big comeback against San Jose in game 1. So no points for him, but he did play in that game, which is always a good start. I'd probably rate him like a B+ prospect in this. So not quite the top end, but, give him a B+. Next up, the best goalie in this Young Guns crop. It is Jesper Wallstedt for the Minnesota Wild. Didn't play today. Was the different goalie for the Minnesota Wild in their win, but drafted in the 2021 draft. Drafted 20th, so just after Zachary Bolduc. 6'3", out of Sweden. And this kid, if you listen to places like the Hockey Gong Show podcast and any other Minnesota Wild fan, they are waiting for this guy to just take over. Now, they don't like Gustafsson, but this kid looks like he could be the real deal with some of his stats. If you look here with the Swedish league, then he comes over in the AHL, puts up 908 and 910 save percentages, plays pretty well. And then even last year, for his 3 games he played for the Wild, 897 with a 301. Not bad. The kid's only 21 years old. He'll be 22 later on this year. So pretty young kid to be going in net. That's not how goalies work, if you don't know. Goalies, typically, you're looking at 24, 25 years old before a lot of these guys get their start. So coming in at 21 is definitely not the norm. Wallstedt's an A prospect. That's just what he is, especially if you like hunting goalies. Now, are goalies weird? Do their prices always stay up as much? No. But if you're talking just like hockey goalie prospect and potential for a young gun, he'd be an A when it comes to goalies for sure. Next up, we're doing this in order, by the way, just how the checklist goes. So this will be number 203 is Landon Slaggert, 3rd round pick for Chicago in 2020. Played in Notre Dame, point per game, almost his last year, 20 goals. He's pretty much like even for his goals and assists. And then played in 16 games last year for Chicago with 1 goal, 3 assists for 4 points. Whatever. B-, C+ prospect. You're not looking at anything crazy for Landon. 22 years old, so he's not old or anything by any stretch. But like I said, there's nothing there that really makes you go, wow, about him. So next up, Kyle McLean. Talk about people that don't give you that wow. Was a -1 on the night for the New York Islanders in his 1 game. No points. Did play in 32 games last year for the Islanders. We put up 9 points, 11 penalty minutes, was a +5. Had a goal in the playoffs last year. But, never really been a big point guy. He'll probably, fix into like the bottom 6. He's also 25 years old. Obviously, he's just on that, old gun cusp for me here. But, usually about a half a point or less per game. Put up some okay numbers in the OHL, but even in the OHL didn't. So, just like a C prospect, C- prospect. I said, shouldn't be going crazy after Kyle McLean cards. So, Mason Morelli, I think the oldest guy, maybe the second oldest guy in this Young Guns checklist. 28 years old, 6'1", not going to spend a time. 9 games for Vegas last year. 3 goals, 1 assist for 4 points. So actually had a pretty good showing. But that's kind of an outlier because, in the AHL, 29 points in 56 games. With the Hershey Bears, 41 and 72. So never really been a big points guy. So I said not really a good player that you're really going to invest in or go anything crazy at 28 years old for a left winger. Good bottom 6 player, I'm sure. But, we'll see how that goes. But same thing, be like a D prospect, I said nothing against the guy, but Brennan Othman is the next one. And one thing I'll mention too in this, it looks like the AHL hasn't started yet. I didn't look into that fully on when it starts, but these guys obviously the NHL teams are kind of figuring out their stuff. Maybe the AHL is still in their preseason or something, because I know there's no stats on any of these guys from the AHL yet. So Brennan Othman was a first-round draft pick in 2021, 16th overall. That's right, one pick ahead of Zachary Bolduc. But 6 feet, 186 pounds, played for Flint, put up some good points. His final year was 67 points in 56 games, so over a point per game. 97 points the year before for Flint. Hartford, 49 points in 67 games with 21 goals. That's pretty good for a 20-year-old last year when that season really would have been going. That's some good numbers in the AHL against grown men for your first competition against grown men. That's pretty good numbers. So, something to think about. One of the things I always like is when you see that stuff, you see the production kind of carry over from junior to the AHL. It's a nice thing to see, especially for those young guys. New York Rangers had 3 games with them last year, 0 points. So didn't make a mark in the NHL, but was able to put up some points there. And with Canada and the World Juniors, had 6 points in both the 2022 and 2023 World Juniors. So said, looking at this guy, he'd be your B prospect, maybe B plus, maybe fits in there a little bit, but not quite an A prospect, but would definitely be like your B plus prospect. Gavin Brindley, second round pick, 34th overall, so that's second pick in the second round. And the 2023 NHL draft, 20 years old, just turned 20, but played in 1 game last year for the Blue Jackets. No points. Didn't play in tonight's game by this, and but did play for the University of Michigan, which just seems to pump out NHL players. Had 53 points in 40 games. Even had 38 points in his first year there. So put up a ton of points, which you don't see typically in these places. But nice to see. Could see something out of this kid. He'd be like another B prospect out of all this. So doesn't have the size that you want. 5'8". Columbus already has some of those shorter guys. Trey Fix-Wolansky's kind of an AHL legend for them. He's shorter, but 5'8", 173, that'd be the only thing that would kind of make me weary on going in on him. Next up, Bradley Nadeau, who's a left winger for the Carolina Hurricanes, was also drafted in the 2023 NHL draft. That's last year's draft. 30th overall, played for University of Maine, 37 games, 19 goals, 27 assists for 46 points. Played in the BCHL before that. That's where Dante Fabro and Tyson Yost and some of those guys played. Had a ton of points in there. Won some championships for the Vs. But yeah, had 1 game for the Carolina Hurricanes last year and was -3. That's a rough game. That's a rough game for a 19-year-old to go in there and play your 1 game and be a -3. But is a Saint Francois de Madawaska NB New Brunswick boy. So big shout out to any New Brunswick boy that makes the show at all. We don't have a ton of them. We're close to Nova Scotia, but they got McKinnon and McCarr and Marchand, or McKinnon, Marchand, and Crosby, obviously. But yeah, anyways, it's good to see a New Brunswick boy make it. But yeah, it wasn't the start you wanted. Didn't play. I don't think Carolina hasn't played yet, so I'm not sure if he's going to crack that opening day roster or not. But once again, put up some points in university, which is what you want to see. Like I said, if you can average over a point per game in university, close to it in AHL, anything like that, you could have a good shot. So next up, another second round pick, 39th overall in that 2021 NHL entry draft. 21-year-old from St. Albert, Alberta, Zach Ostapchuk. For the Vancouver Giants, played a bunch of years, never really put up a ton of points, for a center. Played in the AHL, 69 games, 28 points, so less than half a point per game in the AHL. And then, with Ottawa, 7 games played, 0 points. Yeah, like I said, I'd put him as a C prospect. Again, they have a whole lot over there too. Be another thing I always think about, and I've talked about it many times on here. You really got to pick and choose who you're going for. Like Bradley Nadeau might not be a bad one, because when was the last time Carolina, other than Sebastian Aho and Svechnikov, it's really been 4, 5, 6 years since they've had a prospect come in there. So maybe he gets a little bit of hype behind him. But obviously with the Senators, you got Brady Tkachuk, you got Tim Stützle, you got Shane Pinto. The list goes on and on and on and on of guys that they like over there. So it's just hard to collect so many guys and prospect on that many players. So Jason Poland, Colorado, played in 7 games, 1 goal. It's not a whole lot to say here. 25 years old, undrafted. Western Michigan put up over a point per game in his last season, but in 42 games with the Eagles last year, only had 10 points. So we're not going to spend a lot of time. D prospect. This guy, I was trying to see if he was going to play tonight. Didn't play in the game for the San Jose Sharks, but Shakir Mukhamadullin, that's my best chance. Russian defenseman, lefty, first round pick, 20th overall in the 2020 NHL draft. Was originally drafted by the New Jersey Devils. I think he was part of the Timo Meier trade. Pretty sure he was like one of the big pieces that went back. But played for the San Jose Barracudas last year and put up 34 points, 55 games. A defenseman that can average over a half a point per game in the AHL, especially being that young, being 21, 22 years old for that season, it's pretty good. Like I said, you usually don't see that for the San Jose Barracudas. Played in 3 games last year, had 1 assist. So he's that offensive defenseman that they're probably kind of looking for over there, that maybe can grow. And he's got the size, 6'4", 178 pounds. Have to fill out a little bit there, but he's one of those guys I'd be, if you're looking for a D-man, I think he's probably one of the best guys in this whole Young Guns crop. So I'd give him like an A-. I think offensive defensemen do it. They're gonna have some hype there with Celebrini and everything else, Will Smith. So see what happens. The poster child of the Young Guns, Cutter Gauthier. We saw the Young Guns. If you guys haven't seen it yet, I'll throw it up here. So only thing difference, I'm not sure we're gonna know yet, but you're gonna have the silver at the bottom. That blue in this picture, that's for the deluxe. So I'm kind of wondering what color they go with for the Young Guns, because it won't be blue, because like I said, they just use that blue, that little teal color for the deluxe. Same as they use the red and gold and stuff when it's exclusives, etc. But be exciting to see what they kind of do with that style. I don't mind it. Kind of a little bit of a pullback from some of the designs, but anyways, Cutter Gauthier, Philly's most hated guy, left winger, now playing for the Anaheim Ducks. Drafted 5th overall in the 2022 NHL draft. So 1 pick after all these guys in that 2022 draft, or that 4th round, because it was Slavkovsky, Cooley, all those guys, but he's 5th overall, and all of a sudden says, hey, I don't want to report to Philly. I'm playing for Boston College right now, but when my season ends, I don't want to report to you guys. You guys got to trade me. So everyone in Philly can't stand this kid. Kind of understandable. You spend that much. They get Jamie Drysdale back, a couple other things. But this guy's got the high-end talent, puts up over a point per game in his first year at Boston College, and then second year in 41 games, had 38 goals, 27 assists for 65 points. So you're pretty much a goal per game for Boston College. See what he can do going forward. And in his first NHL game, he had 1 game played and had 1 assist for 1 point and was a +1. So see what happens over there. He's another one, though. And I say this as a guy that has a lot of Mason McTavish. So I'm very jaded here and very whatever. But you can only, once again, have so many players that you're kind of hyped about, right? You got Leo Carlson, you got Mason McTavish, you got Trevor Zegras. It's like, how does Cutter Gauthier kind of fit in there when it comes to your prospecting and the amount of money people want to spend on some of these guys, right? So just one thing to think about. Other than that, the kid's got the size, 6'2", 189 pounds, probably bulked up more since Hockey DB's page here, but see what happens. They haven't played their first game yet. So next up, by the way, that would be like an A prospect for sure. Next up, Zachary Dean, first round in the 2021 NHL entry draft. We've seen a lot of them. 30th overall for the Vegas Golden Knights, gets traded over to the St. Louis Blues. Put up a bunch of points in juniors. Not crazy. Like, by your last season in juniors, you should be like over 89. If you're like a first round draft prospect, you should be a little bit higher than 70 points for sure. But had 9 games last year, the Blues, 0 points. It was a minus 4. But played a little better in the AHL. Same thing. Still a young kid. Would have been 20, 21 years old for the AHL season. Had 49 games played, 9 goals, 5 assists for 14 points. So wasn't minus 40 or minus 20. That's not what you want to see. But did put up a couple points and specifically goals. He seemed to score pretty decently. Pretty even in goals and assists overall. So that was actually kind of a little bit of a change for Springfield. So he'd be like a B prospect. Next up, Luca Del Beluz from Woodbridge, Ontario, center, 6'1", 178 pounds, 2022 NHL draft, second round draft pick by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Once again, here's another guy in the OHL. Last season, actually put up some good numbers. So had 87 points because these two are combined. He would get traded to Sarnia halfway through at that Christmas break, but had a ton of points. That's kind of what you want to see, right? 87 points. Did I look at that wrong? Nope. Just want to make sure that he didn't have a double season. But 87 points in 66 games. That's kind of what you want to see for some of these guys. So Cleveland Monsters, he actually had a pretty good showing with 31 points in 58 games. Played in 1 game, had 1 goal. He had his guy for the Columbus Blue Jackets last year. Didn't play this year for them. I'm assuming he's been sent down to the AHL to probably kind of keep building his game and everything else. They got once again another team that has so many. Voronkov, Kent Johnson, Adam Fantilli, the list goes on and on and on. So just something to think about. But he's probably like a B prospect as kind of how I'd put him. Like I said, played well in the AHL, and that's kind of what I want to see. When I see a really November 10th, so he'll be 21, but that would have been like his 19, 20-year-old season in the AHL. That's pretty good points to be putting up there. Next up, the second best Dallas Stars prospect on this list is Maverick Bourque, center, 22 years old, 5'10", 191 pounds, was drafted in that 2020 NHL draft, 30th overall. Put up a bunch of points kind of everywhere as he went. Got to the AHL, played okay. But last year specifically, him and the guy we'll speak about later just took over. He had 77 points in 71 games. But this guy was mainly dealing. So another thing that you might look at in prospecting, everyone's different. Some guys don't mind the people that assist. Obviously, McDavid assists a whole lot. But, a lot of times in prospecting, the guys people want to spend a bunch on are players that put up goals, right? That's usually how it goes. Your goal scorers are usually the guys that are going to get you the most money. Not that assist guys can't get money and stuff like that, because they do, but that, having the goals. So be the only thing I'd have against him. I'd put him as like a B-, B prospect, just because if you're going to be an assist guy mainly, which kind of seems how he was through a lot of his career, it just kind of makes me think that maybe you're not going to be that guy. Other thing with the Stars, again, there's a guy on this list that's higher than him. You got Jason Robertson, Wyatt Johnston, Miro Heiskanen, Jake Ottinger. So there's a couple other guys on that Dallas Stars team that can kind of do it. But like I said, probably like a B- prospect for me. Rempe, this guy's an A++ prospect. 6'9", 220, 255, 6th round draft pick in the 2020 AHL draft. Guy took the world by storm. Just fighting everybody, fighting every heavyweight. He fought Revo, fought Foligno, I think. He fought Matthew Olivier for the Blue Jackets. Actually got pieced up pretty good in that one. But yeah, just went out there, fought all the big heavyweights. Out there with 2 black eyes, just keeps on going out, never turned down a fight. So hats off to that kid. He's not going to have the the points. It's all about fighting, all about him being a fan favorite over there. It's all about that. So long term, I don't know. I guess you can have some of these fighters that have a long term, love to them. Toronto fans still love Ty Domi. Did Ty Domi put up a ton of points? No. But the guy would fight everybody going. So your enforcers do have a little bit of that love. But, I don't know if I'd be super heavy investing Rempe. But if you pull one, like I said, I'm assuming that's going to be a decently priced young gun at the start. So next up, a goalie, our second goalie in the list, Matthew Villalta from Kingston, Ontario, 6'3", was drafted in 2017. I think that's the latest we have for our draft pick. 25 years old, so once again, kind of actually normal for your goalies. The last couple of years actually played really well for Ontario Reign, and then get traded over to, or maybe even just signed to the Arizona Hockey Club area. Played in 51 games for the Arizona Roadrunners. Actually had a .911 save percentage with a .254 goals against average. Won 31, 17, and 3. That's pretty good numbers for this guy. Like I said, he is an older goalie now, but got into 2 NHL games and it kind of dropped. Pucks come a little faster in the NHL, but 828 and 417. So now they're over in Utah. They got Connor Ingram kind of being their main guy there. But, maybe he gets in a couple more games this year. Goalies are one of those ones. It's not bad to kind of pick them up. Even if you get you can find cheap lower number parallels and stuff like that. You pick them up for cheap, you stash them aside, and maybe one day they do something. Don't usually do that with players, like forwards or defensemen and stuff like that. But goalies, you just never know. We've seen a whole lot of them over the years that, all of a sudden this guy gets traded over to the Leafs and plays, for 2 weeks, plays pretty well. Kid's market would go crazy. So Maxwell, I'd be like a C prospect for him. C minus maybe. But Maxwell Crozier, 4th round pick for Tampa Bay in 2019. This guy, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. Be like a C minus prospect. He's a defenseman. Doesn't put up a ton of points. 24 years old, so C minus. James Malatesta, former Quebec Ramparts champion. 66 points in 55 games. Small though. Once again, another one of these guys for that Columbus Blue Jackets organization. We went through it earlier. 5'9", 193 pounds. He's got a little bit of bulk to him, but still that 5'9", not really what you want to see. Only 21 years old though. Put up 22 points in 56 games for the Cleveland Monsters last year in the AHL. And in 11 games for the Columbus Blue Jackets, put up 4 points. So once again, probably your B minus prospect, C plus prospect, but like I said, doesn't really put up a ton of points in any of these. Point per game, fine, but once again, you're looking for more than that in a high end prospect. So like I said, C plus, B minus type of guy. The third goalie on the list is an Ivan Fedotov, 6'7", 214. You think in most lists he'd be the tallest guy, but no, not thanks to Rempe. 7th round draft pick in the 2015 NHL draft. That's Connor McDavid's draft class, by the way. A lot of times with those Russian guys, he's going to be playing for Russia. He's going to be playing in the KHL. They're not going to spend a bunch of high-end draft picks on him. So played in the KHL, played really well, 931, 925, 919, 914. Came over the end of last year for the Flyers. Got into 3 games. Once again, came back to reality. A little bit faster than the KHL, but 8'11 with a 495. Yikes. Not good for the poor kid. So gave up 10 goals on say how many shots against him. Doesn't. So anyways, 10 goals in 3 games. Not good. They got Samuel Larson. They got a couple other guys over there. So see what happens with him overall for the Flyers. They obviously going to have a ton of hype with Michkov and Tyson Forrester and some of these other guys. Michkov is, obviously a guy a lot of people think is going to win the Calder. So see what happens there. He'd be not really a prospect at this point, but once again, goalies, you never know. Be like a B. Ethan Del Mastro, 4th round pick, 2021 NHL draft, 21 years old, 6'4", 210 for the left shooting defenseman. He's fine, half a point per game as a D-man, kind of going throughout his, some of his career. Actually, even more than that for his last year in Sarnia and in Mississauga in the OHL. But, half a point in the AHL. see what happens there. But, you get Kevin Korchinski, who just got put back down into the AHL also. Didn't play in the first game for the Blackhawks, so I'd assume he got sent back down to Rockford to start the year. So, still young and still put up a ton of points in the AHL. So as a defenseman, that kind of gives me a little hype. Maybe a B prospect for him. Jelson Brazio actually played in 2 games so far this season for the Bruins. Had 1 assist. Played 19 games last year. Had 7 points, 5 goals, 2 assists. But he is 26 years old. So once again, not looking at a ton for value in this. He'd be like a C prospect. Like I said, you just get to that 26-year-old. Maybe if you become a fan favorite, but not going to have a whole lot of staying power there. Colin Graff, 22-year-old, just turned 22 out of Lincoln, Mass. 6'1", 194 for the San Jose Sharks. Did not play in tonight's game. Looks like he went back to university, or he's going back to university. I didn't think that was allowed. But played in 7 games for the San Jose Sharks with 2 points. Had 49 points in university the year before in 34 games. So same thing. I don't know if there's a ton of prospects behind him. Still young, but you probably like a C minus for him. Next up, Graham Clark, 23 years old, right wing from Minnesota, 6 foot, 175 pounds, drafted in 2019 in the 3rd round. Got in 3 games last year from the Devils. No points. Now he's back in his hometown in Minnesota. Actually put up a decent amount of points, 49 points in 67 games and 58 the year before in 68 games. So 2 really solid seasons in the AHL. Obviously, he's kind of getting a little bit older. Those would have been his 21 to 23-year-old seasons there. So, like I said, but you're getting a little older. Same thing. I'd probably put him as like a C prospect. Scott Moreau, 21 years old for the Carolina Hurricanes. Talked about it earlier. They haven't had a whole lot of young blood in there. So, see what happens there. 2nd round pick in 2021, 40th overall. Played for UMass, 30 points in 37 games. He's a D-man, so they've got rid of some of them over the years, Justin Falk, everything else, but had 2 games for the Carolina Hurricanes last year, had no points. Also was a -3. Once again, game comes at you real quick when you play there. So, but every year, pretty much a point per game in college. So good to see from that defenseman. Not a ton of goals, more assists, but that's kind of standard too for D-men. Brennan Breeson, 1st round draft pick in 2020 for the Vegas Golden Knights. Played in 15 games last year, had 8 points, so actually not too bad. Half point per game. A lot of them were assists, and actually, same thing, put up some decent amount of points, 37 in 58 games and 38 in 52 games. Was pretty even for his goals and assists pretty much all through his career. It's kind of one of the things I like to see a little bit more of. Is guys that are kind of even or maybe even have a little bit slight of advantage when it comes to goals. Played in 1 game. Somehow in the 8 goals scored against Colorado the other night, he didn't have a single point, but they didn't need him. My guy Barbashev just wrecked us. Anyways, good little prospect. I said probably be like a your B plus prospect. I said is getting a little bit older now. He's 22 years old. I know that sounds crazy, but again, it's just something to think about. Frank Nazar for the Chicago Blackhawks, 13th overall pick in the 2022 NHL entry draft. Played for that Michigan powerhouse once again. Had a point per game in his final season there. Played for Chicago last year. 3 games played, 1 goal, no assists. It was a -4. I think everyone was a minus on that Chicago team. Same thing though, a little bit smaller, 5'9", 175 pounds. So you're just talking a little bit smaller for that center. Bedard's got the hype there. Lucas Reichel has some hype still. He struggled last year. So see where he kind of lines in there. But, you're probably looking – he's got the draft pedigree, that 13th overall. So he probably still rank with me like a B-plus prospect just because of the draft pedigree. Next up, we got Brad Lambert, 30th overall in the 2022 NHL draft. Over there for the Winnipeg Jets there. Yeah, down to Manitoba. Had 55 points in 64 games, 21 goals, 34 assists. If you kind of look through a lot of his stuff, the Finn kind of was, pretty much half and half, right? You're 1 goal for every 1 assist. Once again, not a bad stat line to have throughout his entire career. Last year in the AHL, he had more of a, a little bit more of a passing, but put up 55 points in only being 20 years old. He would have been, 19, 20 years old for that whole season. That's crazy. That's so many points for a young guy, playing there. So I know this is going to sound crazy. I'd put him as even then like an A- prospect, B+, A-. Like you put up that many points in your 19, 20-year-olds. I guess it would have been his 20. Yeah, still really his 19, 20-year-old season. That's so many points in the AHL for those young guys. So I'm always a big fan of that. I'm always going to root for guys that do that. Seattle Thunderbirds, he went over a point per game. So I'd really like Brad Lambert going forward. Maybe a guy that you guys would never heard of before this. One AHL game, had 1 assist. See what happens, going into this season. Lane Hutson, the second most chased young gun in this set already. I already know it. It's Montreal. Maybe even the first. People are talking this kid could win the Calder. Second round pick, 62nd overall in the 2022 NHL draft. Left shooting D-man, small, 5'9", out of Michigan. Played for Boston University. Over a point per game as a D-man in university. It's pretty good. 49 points in 38 games, 15 goals, 34 assists. The kid is electric out there. Just does some really, really fancy things. The size kind of worries me a little bit. Like I said, I'm just a smaller D-man. Played in 2 games last year for the Montreal Canadiens, had 2 assists. Well, this year, played in 2 games so far for the Montreal Canadiens, has 2 assists. So, it's going to be a point per game. Kid's going to put up 82 points in his rookie season. Pretty good. The stats are there. It's going to back it up. So, D-men, Montreal, they got some other guys, right? Caden Gooley, all this, but Lane Hutson's kind of the guy right now in this. So, next up, he'd be because it's Montreal, like an A prospect. If it wasn't Montreal, if he played for, anywhere else, if he played for Carolina, he'd be like a B+ maybe. But because he's Montreal, it's an A. Just from collectability, hype around him, everything else. They'll turn on him quick if he plays bad. But for now, I'd say he's probably like an A prospect in this class. So Pierre Dubé, right winger out of France, 23 years old, 3 games in for the Capitals last year, no points, but played pretty good. Same thing, you're just getting a little older. He's 5'9", just one of those things I kind of worry about. So I'd probably put him as like a B- prospect. Next up, Arshdeep Baines out of Surrey, BC, 6 foot, 23 years old, put up, a point per game in the AHL, kind of what you want to see. Took a big step though from the year before. Did get into 8 games for the Canucks last year, had 0 points, so -5. But if you look, he really, 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 it was last year, 112 points in the AHL, 43 goals, 69 assists. That is so many points for, the Red Deer Rebels. Every other season he was kind of, 51, point per game in an injury-ridden season, it looks like here, 21 points. So he was pretty good overall. Canucks can always use. They're kind of in that weird era, right? Trying to see if they're going to rebuild or what. I'm assuming he'd be down in the AHL for the start of the season, but maybe trying to hone his craft. But could be a good little guy to think. Like, again, not a ton of young guys there. Obviously, you get Pettersson and Quinn Hughes and a couple of those guys, but could be a good addition there for the Canucks. Be like a B+, B prospect for that. Ruslan Ishkov, he's in the KHL now. Nobody cares. Played 1 game. We're going to move on. Josh Doan, son of Shane Doan, Arizona Coyotes legend, now trying to become a legend himself for the Utah Hockey Club. In 2 games, he just had a beautiful goal. So he's got 1 goal on the season in 2 games. Last year, came up after playing the AHL for a bit, had 9 points in 11 games, almost a point per game, 5 goals, 4 assists, put up 46 points in 62 games. This is one of those guys. Yes, you got Gauthier there. Yes, you got Cooley, but just being the son of Shane Doan kind of brings a little bit something there. So I put Josh, and he's done it the right way. He's played well, done it, put up points everywhere he's gone. Arizona State University in the AHL, everything else. I put Josh as like a A- prospect. Still 22 years old, but he's got the size, 6'2", everything else. And once again, if your dad's Shane Doan, you probably know a thing or two about hockey. So. John St. Ivani, 4th round pick in 2018. I guess I should have said Josh was the 37th. People thought they were just drafting him just because of the Coyotes, because his dad played there. I think he's given them a reason other than, maybe he's a little better than a 2nd round draft pick. 14 games for this defenseman. Not a ton of points. He's 25 years old. Be like a D+, C- prospect. Yan Kuznetsov, Russian D-man, shooting left, 6'4", 209. 2020 NHL draft, was drafted in the 2nd round. Same thing, not a ton of points. 22 years old, great, but doesn't really put up points. And for a defenseman to really have any hobby love at all, you got to put up points. So be like a C- prospect for me. Olen Zellweger, talking about a guy that can put up points. Look at his last year for Kamloops. Put up 80 points in 55 games. Pretty good for the 2nd round pick in the 2021 NHL draft for the Anaheim Ducks. 5'10", 187 pounds. Left shooting defenseman. What happened to all the right shooting defensemen? Just want to put that out there. But went last year, played in the AHL, 37 points in 44 games. Pretty good. 9 points in 26 NHL games. Once again, that whole Ducks team last year was just weird. Guys injured. Zegras didn't play well. McTavish was kind of a little bit hurt throughout it. Just a lot of weird stuff there, but still not bad. 9 points in 26 games for a D-man for a rookie. So I really like Olen Zellweger. I think he's probably like an A- prospect, especially on the defense. I think he's probably their best defense prospect right now. Pavel Mitnikov is probably up there too, but this kid's just electric. Put up points everywhere he goes. 78 points the year before. So once again, kid just puts up points. Don't see it too often. So, and if you watch the World Juniors that year, kid put up 11 points in 7 games. Even last year, 6 points in 7 games. So, kid's just electric. Marshall Afai out of Quebec, 26-year-old. Whatever, leaves, doesn't matter. Be like a D+ prospect. Cameron Crotty, defenseman, right shooting defenseman, there we go, but 25 years old. For the Yotes, doesn't put up points. Like D+ prospect. Much talked about Logan Mailloux just got sent down to Laval to start the season. 1st round draft pick. Everyone knows there was a bunch of controversy against this kid. They still took him at the end of the draft, at the end of the 1st round. 6'3", 213. 21 years old, so still super young, and put up points. London Knights put up points, 53 points, 59 games. Last year with the Rockets, 47 points in 72 games. Once again, that kid would have been 20 to 21 years old in that draft, in that year. That's a lot of points for a D-man. Once again, right shooting D-man, which is always kind of something people are looking for. So putting up points. Got in 1 game last year in the NHL, 1 goal, one assist for 1 point in 1 game played. So see what happens. Had 91 penalty minutes last year, for the Laval Rockets, but getting a little bit on the penalty side, but puts up points, in the playoffs, was over a point per game in the playoffs in the OHL. So once again, Montreal just at it, right? You got Lane Hutson, you got him. You can think whatever you want about the kid, but man, he can play hockey. Next up for the Anaheim Ducks, another center, 22 years old. You get Sam Colangelo, kind of like Brian Colangelo, former Raptor. Great there, but Northeastern University and then Western Michigan University, 43 points in 38 games, was less than a half, or sort of about a point per game in Northeastern University. Played in the AHL for 4 games, 4 points. 3 games last year for the Ducks, 1 point. So see what happens. I don't see anything about him there, so maybe he's off in the AHL to start the season. / the Ducks haven't started their season yet for the NHL. So see what happens. Be a guy you'd probably put him at, a B- prospect. Like I said, you just got to worry about the high end talent there. So be like a B- prospect. Emil Lilberg, you got 4th round in 2021 NHL draft. Another D-man out of Norway, 23 years old. Doesn't put up a ton of points. C prospect. If you're a defenseman, you can't put up points, I'm not going to give you a high rating. It's just not worth the time. Akil Thomas, center, right shooting, out of the 2018 draft. Finally got a shot at 24 years old. Put up 4 points, 3 goals, 1 assist in 7 games. He'd be like a B- prospect. Just getting on that older side, C+, B-. Never really put up a ton of points. I guess he had that 1 year for Niagara. I guess his last year too, he put up some good points, but just, you look here in the AHL, 26 points in 40 games, 13 points in 40 games, 8 and 13, 46 and 64. Like, it's not bad by any stretch, but you're getting older now. Like you're the man that these younger kids are playing against that you want to see the points from. So, like I said, put him as like a C+, B- prospect, just because he's getting a little bit older at that 24 years old to really start becoming a prospect now. Merit Kushnitdinov, Russian center. Gotta love the Russian names. 5'11" for the Minnesota Wild, 2nd round draft pick in the 2020 NHL draft. Probably because they realized he would be stuck here in the KHL for a few seasons. But came over last year in 16 games, had 4 points, 1 goal, 3 assists. Played in the first game for the Wild this year, 0 points. My guy Boldy had 3. Shout out Boldy. Look though, it's pretty good points throughout. 20 points. So he kind of took a little bit of a step back. You just never know what's going on in the KHL with some of these stats though. Like, is it not being played a whole lot? Still young, but for me, he'd probably be like a B- prospect. Not really a guy that I'm super high on. There's somebody here in a minute that I'm a little higher on. So next up, the guy from this draft class, from this Young Guns class, not draft class, but Young Guns class, 2021 2nd round pick, 47th overall. How he fell there, who knows? But Logan Stankoven for the Dallas Stars, 21 years old, a little bit undersized, 5'8", 171 pounds, out of Kamloops, BC. But if you look, the kid puts up points. In 59 games, had 104 points. Next year in 48 games, had 97 points. Puts up goals, puts up assists, does it all. Just a ton of points for Logan Stankoven. And I mentioned earlier, goes over last year to the AHL, meshes with Maverick Bourque right from the get-go, and puts up 57 points in 47 games in the AHL. Just a ton. Gets up in the NHL for 24 games, puts up 14 points. Same thing. Pretty good numbers for a rookie. And then in 19 games played last year, puts up 8 points in the playoffs. So once again, doing it in the playoffs about a half point per game, doing it at a half point per game almost in the regular season. So doing pretty good. And then starts the season off this year with 3 assists in the first game. Pretty good. So as far as it goes, you got to put him up as an A. The kid just puts up points. That's all he does. A little undersized would be the thing I'd be worried about, but you're really looking at like an A-, just a kid that's going to do it. Talked about it earlier though, Jason Robertson's there, Wyatt Johnston's there, some of these Miro Heiskanen, Jake Ottinger. So you got a lot of other, young guns that people chase there. So it's just hard to get 4 or 5 guys. I say it all the time, my favorite team is Colorado. McKinnon's jersey right back there. Mikko Rantanen's one of the best players in the world. Probably top 10 player in the world. Had a hat trick start in the night. Nobody cares about his stuff. They care about it a little bit, but definitely not where they should. So just a thing to keep in mind. And that's because there is a Makar and there's a Nathan McKinnon that play on that same team, right? So how many dollars in the hobby can go to one team? Montreal, Toronto, yeah, you can spend a little more. Dallas, who knows? Next up, Nikita Trebikov, another Russian. We're talking a right winger, 21 years old, 5'10", 2021 NHL draft. A ton of 2021 guys in here. 50th overall for the Winnipeg Jets. Not a ton, right? KHL, 4 games played, 2023, 223, 31 games played, 2 points. You're like, what is going on here? Gets sent down to, plays in this little thing, 10 points in 16 games, 18 points. Okay, so I'm guessing these are like the minor leagues and stuff. But then goes over to the Manitoba Moose last year and puts up 47 points in 70 games. Was a minus 18, not what you want to see, but puts up a ton of points as a young kid for the Winnipeg Jets. So it's nice to see. Got in 1 game last year, 1 goal. So once again, good to see. They did have their first game. He didn't play in it, so I'm assuming he's getting sent down to the Moose again for another season. But see what happens with him. He'd be like your B prospect. Is it a fluke? Was last year's a fluke, right? 47 points in 70 games against grown men when a lot of these other, didn't play well in the KHL. Once again, can be weird stuff over there. With some of the stuff that, did he get in the lineup? Was he playing? Everything else, who knows? But put up a ton of points last year in the AHL. So it gives you that hope, but, can he continue it to be like a B minus prospect for me for now, just where there's not really the longevity there. So next up, Joshua Waugh. So a third high-end Montreal prospect, young gun here, was actually the first overall pick in the QMJHL draft. 21 years old, 6 feet tall, 192 pounds. Went to St. John, 44 points, so almost a point per game. Next year, kind of fell off with Sherbrooke and St. John, so got traded over there, had 35 points in 35 games. Not bad, but, first overall pick, you kind of expect a little bit more. Then 119 points and then 99 points. So put up a ton of points in the next 2 years. So like I said, his draft year would have been after the 35 points in 35 games for that draft. So he really exploded after that. Plays with the Laval last year, 32 points in 41 games. What you want to see. Was a dash 17 though, so not what you want to see. And then got in 23 NHL games last year, had 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points. So just under a half point per game in the NHL for a rookie season. Fantilli, Cooley, go on, the list goes on. A lot of those guys kind of fell in that same kind of, point range. So kid has a lot of upside. There's a reason why he was the first overall pick in the queue. So see what happens with him. And it's Montreal. So a couple things with Montreal. If he plays well, they will pay money for him. They will pay big money for him. But it goes back to the same thing. You get 2 other guys here, and Logan and Lane Hutson. Their prices are going to be big out of this set. You also have, Cole Caulfield there, Slavkovsky, Nick Suzuki. List goes on. So once again, how many prospects can you pay? But Montreal, you can pay some. Played a really good defensive role in the last couple World Juniors and stuff too. So it had points, 8 points in 7 games in 2022-23, 2022 year, and then 2023, which is last year, had 11 points in 7 games. So kid showed up to play for the junior team or for the World Junior team. So see what he can do going forward. Gage, he'd be like your 5th round draft pick. But really, 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 you got to think this kid is like a B+, A- draft, prospect, really, in all this. Just, you look at the points, right? 119, 99, even put up that many points in the AHL. So, and it's Montreal, so you got to give him like a B+, A-. Gage Goncalves out of Mission, BC. You got center. Second round pick in the 2020 NHL draft. 58 points in 69 games, 23 years old though. So he's, got 3 years of experience in the AHL, just getting older. I don't know. He'd be like a C+ prospect to me. This guy, Liam Ogren, first round pick, 19th overall in the 2022 NHL draft for the Minnesota Wild. Played in Sweden, put up good numbers in the men's league in Sweden for his last year there, 19 points in 26 games. That doesn't happen over in Sweden. Goes over to the Iowa Wild in the AHL last year. 3 games played, doesn't put up a point though, but did get into 4 games in the NHL to finish the season. Had 1 goal, 1 assist for 2 points. So see what he can do this year. Didn't play in the opening game once again, but lots of upside for this kid. Could he do something? Sure. It looks like if you look at the stats here, 11 goals, 9 assists, 12 goals, 7 assists. So he's even scoring at a higher clip than he's assisting on. That goes all the way back to the junior league here with 33 goals in 25 games. So once again, you'll like to see goal scorers. Doesn't take away from my guy, Matt Boldy, and his goal scoring. He could leave him alone a little bit, but let him keep on getting points and goals. But that's a pretty good sign there. So I'd put him as like, an A- prospect here, B+ prospect, kid that could do really well if he gets the opportunity. So, and to finish it off, another New Brunswick boy from Saint Marie de Kent, New Brunswick, Lucas Cormier, the left shooting defenseman, drafted in the 2020 NHL draft, 3rd round, 68th overall for the Vegas Golden Knights, played for the Charlottetown Islanders for his entire career in the QMJHL, and puts up points as a D-man. So once again, even in his rookie year, 36 points in 63 games, 36 points in 44 games, 54 points in 39 games, and then 81 points in his final year in 62 games, 21 points in 15 games in the playoffs. So once again, kid played really well. Goes to the AHL the last 2 seasons. Okay, 35 points in 62 games the year before. Then last year takes a step back with only 20 points in 58 games and was a -30. Anyways, 2 games last year played with the Vegas Golden Knights, had 1 assist for 1 point and was a +1. He had his guy. So I'd like to see what the kid can do in the future. I said, you ever get a New Brunswick boy in these young guns, a lot of guys root for him and everything else, hoping that he can kind of make the next jump, so he can become a full-time NHLer. So be nice to see, like I said, just close to me, pretty much one of the closest prospects in a long time, especially for New Brunswick. So hopefully Lucas can kind of make a name for himself, get a full-time spot eventually in the NHL, and kind of build from that. He's still only 22 years old. Let's be honest here. Puts up points though, so I'm going to give him a thumbs up for that. Did take a step back last year, but he's still probably like a B prospect over there for the Vegas Golden Knights going forward. So that's all of them. This is a very long video. I realize that now. It's a lot to talk about. 49 guys, and kind of go over a little bit of every one of them. It's a lot of time. I forget this every time I do this video. Every time it ends up being very, very long, but hopefully it gives you guys a little more thoughts. Like I said, if you go through it, some of the guys you might not have known about, right? You wouldn't have known about, not everyone's going to know about Brad Lambert. Like I said, this kid for Winnipeg, now it's Winnipeg, so a lot of their prospects don't go for a ton. But, kid looks like the real deal here. Put him that many points last year in the AHL. Even with the South Thunderbirds and stuff. So hopefully there's a couple guys throughout this list that you can kind of go through and say, hey, didn't know that guy, didn't know who they were, didn't know they existed before this video. Now I'm excited. Now I want to, I can't get the screen to come back. Now I want to, that's not one of the guys. 1 second. I got to switch that. We can't end on that. We'll end on Lucas. How about that? You can kind of decide for yourself if there's any guys that you want to look into. Once again, hopefully you guys enjoy this. If you guys ever think about any of these videos and if you have anything you want to see differently, let me know. I've thought about doing like top 20 videos instead. But once again, I kind of want you guys to know all of who these guys are, right? Give you know every player. So when you pick when you pull that young gun, you can go, oh, hey, I know exactly who that guy is. So once again, thank you guys for watching. If you guys haven't yet, hit the like, hit the subscribe, follow me on Instagram. eBay store button down below, Slab Charts link down below if you guys are looking to consign with them, and Card Ladder Pro for all your comps and stuff. Only place I get my comps from. So check all that stuff out. And for Erica from the bench, talk to you guys later. Bye, guys.